Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to learn how to complete a task in the background. In order to do this, we're going to learn about something in Laravel called the queue. Let's jump into the action and let me explain. So, in our previous lesson we set things up so that when you create a new blog post, it sends an email. However, notice that when I click Save New Post, 1,000, 1,000. It takes almost a good 3 seconds because it's performing a network request to actually send that email before it redirects the user to this page. However, if you stop and think about it, we don't need to wait for that email to actually be sent before we redirect the user to this screen. We should just redirect them immediately, and we can add an email job to our queue. In other words, Laravel can complete that email task whenever it can get to it. Right? Because it's not a big deal if it takes 5 seconds to get to that task or 10 seconds. Laravel can get to it when it sees fit in the background. But there's no sense in blocking, right? If you think about like JavaScript code, there's synchronous code and then asynchronous code. Right? If you've ever written code for Node.js, the idea is that if something's asynchronous, you're not sure how long it's going to take, but the idea is that you don't want it to block any other tasks. So in other words, when you create a new post, we would just want to immediately redirect to this screen and then add the email job to some sort of queue. And that's exactly what Laravel already has built into it, this concept of a queue, where you can queue up different jobs. And then Laravel will execute or complete those jobs in the background when it sees fit. This will create a much better user experience for our visitors, right? When they create a blog post, they don't have to sit around waiting for that email to send. We can just immediately redirect them to this new screen. So let me show you how we're going to do this. First of all, we're going to start in our command line. So open up a new command line, and I want you to run this with me. It's PHP artisan make : job. Space, and then let's just name our job. You could name it anything, but just so you and I are on the same page, let's name it maybe like send new post email. Go ahead and press enter. Now, let me show you what that did. In our app folder, there's a folder called jobs, and there's that new file. So, as you might have guessed, what we need to do now, if you scroll down towards the bottom of this file, we see a function named handle. Essentially, in this job file, this is where we would want to send the email, not in our post controller. So here's what I would do. Let's go into our post controller, postcontroller.php, and essentially, in our function that's named storeNewPost, we don't want to directly send the email from our post controller method. Instead, we're going to move this mail line in just a second or two, but right above it, what we would want to do is dispatch a job. So there's a function you call dispatch, and then we would just create a new instance of send new post email. That's the name of our job. So parentheses to call it, we're creating a new instance. In these parentheses, we would give it an array because it needs to know, like who to send it to, the title of the post, so on and so forth. So I would probably create a property named send to, just like this. I'm just making this up. And then set that to equal. And then to avoid typing, you could just copy and paste the auth user call, the email property. So just paste that here, comma, and then I also would want to pass like username and title. So to save some typing, I would just select, the name property and the value, the title property and the value, just to the end of the title property like this. So I would just paste that into here. Okay, and then I would take this mail to line and just cut that line into your clipboard. Now, before we save this file, let's be sure to import our job. So right click on send new post email, click import class, and let's also go up to the very top of this file. We no longer need to import our mail file. So we can get rid of this new post email. We can save this file, and now back in our job file, down at the bottom of our job file in the handle function, we can get rid of the comment and just paste in our clipboard, right, the mail to line, but we do need to make a few adjustments to this line of code. So for the to address, we wouldn't just look on the auth function. So we would instead say $this, look inside that. We can name it incoming. And then on that array, we named it send to. Okay, let's just go through this bit by bit. So we're sending an email. We do need to import our new post email, so right click on that. We also need to right click on uppercase mail and import that. But let's just continue to go through this line of code. So for the name, that would not be from the auth function. that would instead, for that value, that would just be, $this, look inside it for incoming. In that array, we named it name. And then we would do the same thing for title, right? We wouldn't look on new post. So you can get rid of this new post value. Instead, it would be $this, look inside it for incoming. In that array, look for title. Cool. Now, up above in the construct function, let's say $incoming. In the body of the construct function, I would just say $this, add a property to it of named incoming, and just set it to equal $incoming. Right above that and below this use line, let's just say public $incoming. So incoming, these are the values that are coming from the post controller where we're dispatching a new job. And then ultimately, what is this job doing? It's the one actually, saying, hey, go ahead and send the email. Let's go ahead and save this. And now let's test it out. And I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. By default on a brand new Laravel project, the way that it's set up out of the box, this is not going to run in the background. We will still have to change one last detail to get it working the way we want it to, but that's okay. We can cross that bridge when we get to it. Before we worry about making it super fast and performant, let's just make sure that our new code is working. So if I go create a new post with the Brad user, and click Save New Post, 1002, and you can see it takes 3 or 4 seconds, but it worked. Cool, but it didn't actually run in the background. Let me show you why. It has to do with our .env file. So in VS Code, I need you to jump into your .env file. And for me, it's around line 21, but we're looking for this area where it says queue_connection. We do not want it to be set to sync. So that's just going to give us that default behavior, right? Where it essentially is blocking anything else from happening until the job completes. We do not want that. So instead of sync, we're going to set queue connection to equal database. Go ahead and save and close your .env file. And now we do need to migrate a new table into our database. Let me show you what we do. We just run a command of php artisan queue_table. Excuse me, not underscore, :table. So php artisan queue::table. Go ahead and press enter. And now let me show you what that did. All that did in your database folder under migrations is it created a new migration file that's going to add a jobs table to our database. So now we know the drill here. To actually have your migration take place, you would just say, so do this with me, php artisan migrate. Go ahead and press enter. And now if you look at your MySQL workbench or your MySQL database and you refresh, you will see that now there's a table named jobs. And now we actually have the setup that we want. So this is super cool. Check this out. Our job is actually not going to run. We're still one command away from it running, but we've eliminated that awkward delay. So now if you create a brand new blog post, so if I say new post test, add a little bit of content, click save, notice it goes through immediately. This is awesome. So we've greatly improved the user experience. However, you're not going to see in Mailtrap that new email. So I see, these old posts where I just typed in a bit of fake gibberish text, but we don't see this brand new one that I named new post test. However, if you go look in your database and you look at your jobs table, you'll see there's an item, a row in that table. This row in the database table of the jobs table, this represents that job, that email job that needs to be sent. So now in order to tell Laravel, hey, actually perform the jobs that are in the queue that are waiting to be done, here's what we do. In your command line, just say php artisan queue::work. Go ahead and press enter. That's going to run in the background. It's just going to continue to work forever until we tell it to stop. But notice it says, it took 2 seconds, but it completed our job. And if you go to Mailtrap, let me click the refresh icon, there is that brand new email, and there we see, your new post is named new post test. Now to really test this out, with that up and running in your command line, right? It's looking at the queue for any current jobs. Let's really test this out. So just, maybe with my Barks-a-Lot user, if I create a new post, I'll say, being a dog is fun. And add some content, click save. Awesome, it goes through immediately. That is lightning fast. And if you go check Mailtrap, let me click the refresh icon, Awesome. We sent an email to Barks-a-lot at Learn Web Code, and there you see the new post, being a dog is fun. So the idea here is that if you press Control C, right, if you don't have that task up and running, the PHP Artisan queue work, Laravel is just going to keep adding new jobs to the queue. And then whenever you actually have that task up and running, it's just going to run them as quickly as it can. But the idea is it's in the background. It's not going to block the flow of your application. If you've ever written code for Node.js, this is essentially giving us asynchronous behavior, but we're in the world of PHP. So this is super awesome. I'm a huge fan of this approach. Now, don't worry, when we learn how to actually set up a Laravel project on our real public Linux live server, I'll show you a more robust way, because you don't want to have to like SSH into your live server and every time you restart the computer, run this command, right, of PHP Artisan queue work. So we will, in a future lesson, learn of a more robust way to have your queue worker just automatically start up. But when you're developing locally, when you're on your local dev or test environment, this is the way that I recommend, right? If you want to test your queue, if you want to test your jobs, you just run this task in the background. If you really wanted to test and see how things work, firsthand experience, what you could do is create like 3 new posts, right? Like first new post, and let me create second new post. And right now I do not have the queue worker running. So let me say, third new post. Okay, and then if you went into your database and refreshed the table view for jobs, right, you see those 3 email jobs that I just queued up by creating new posts. And then as soon as you actually would have your worker task running, so PHP Artisan queue:work, as soon as I press enter, that's going to start going through the queue and taking care of any jobs. So there you can see the first one took almost 3 seconds, and then the next 2 went very quick, but they actually went through. If you go into Mailtrap, there we see the 3 emails. Awesome. Essentially, anytime you have a task that's going to take a little bit of time, but it doesn't need to happen right then and there, and you don't want to block the user experience, well, that's a perfect instance of when you could set up a job using the queue system. In our next lesson, we're going to learn how to schedule tasks in Laravel. So for example, imagine if you wanted to send like a recap email to your website owner, but you only wanted to send it like every 6 hours or every 3 hours or only once a day. Or what if there was some other task you wanted to do like every minute or every 3 minutes, or any sort of automated scheduled task? We're going to learn how to set that up in our next lesson. Let's keep things rolling, and I'll see you then.